The letter trembled in Emma Clark's hands as she read it for the 5th time that morning. Her son Tyler had been accepted into the Bayside STEM Academy's accelerated program. It was everything they had worked for, everything Tyler deserved, and everything they couldn't afford. "Mom, are we out of cereal again?" Tyler called from the kitchen of their small apartment. Emma quickly tucked the letter into her pocket. "Check the cabinet above the fridge," she called back, buying herself a moment to compose her face before facing her son. At 12, Tyler was too smart for his own good. He could read her expressions better than most adults. She walked into their tiny kitchen, where Tyler was pouring the last bits of cereal into a chipped bowl. His dark hair stuck up in all directions, a cowlick that refused to be tamed no matter how much water she smoothed on it. "Big test today, right?" she asked, ruffling his hair. Tyler nodded, his mouth full of cereal. "Mr. Peterson says my science project might qualify for the county competition." Emma smiled, pride momentarily pushing aside her worries. "Of course it will. You're the smartest kid in that school." "Mom, that's statistically impossible to verify," Tyler said, but his pleased smile betrayed him. The old wall clock, a garage sale find Emma had restored, showed 7:15. "Finish up, buddy. Bus comes in 10 minutes. As Tyler brushed his teeth, Emma looked at the stack of bills on the counter. The red final notice stamp on the electric bill seemed to glow mockingly. The diner where she worked had cut her hours again last week. Even with her weekend shifts at the convenience store, they were barely treading water. And now this letter, with its promise of opportunity wrapped in expensive fees and required equipment. The program cost wasn't just tuition, it required a high-end laptop, special materials, and transportation to weekend workshops. It might as well have been $1 million. "Mom? You okay?" Tyler stood in the doorway, backpack slung over one shoulder, concern in his eyes. Emma quickly straightened, pushing a smile onto her face. "Just thinking about what to make for dinner. Go on, you'll miss the bus." After a quick hug, Tyler darted out the door. Emma watched from the window as he joined the other kids at the corner. Even from a distance, she could see how he stood slightly apart, already different in ways the other kids sensed but couldn't name. Tyler had always been special, focused, curious, with a mind that worked in equations and systems while other kids were still figuring out video games. Emma's phone rang, startling her from her thoughts. It was Denise, the diner manager. "Emma, I'm sorry to do this over the phone." Denise's voice was genuinely apologetic, but the message was clear. The diner was cutting staff. After 4 years of serving early bird specials to retirees and late-night coffee to fishermen coming off their boats, Emma was unemployed. When the call ended, Emma sat at the kitchen table, staring at nothing. Then, slowly, methodically, she opened her laptop, an ancient thing that wheezed when running more than one program, and began searching job listings. 2 hours and a dozen applications later, Emma's eyes caught on an unusual posting. Personal care assistant needed. Experience preferred, but not required. Salary significantly above market rate. Serious applicants only. The listing was for a position at Cliff House, the massive stone mansion that overlooked Bayside Harbour from its perch on the northern headland. Everyone in town knew of Cliff House and its reclusive owner, though few had ever seen him since his accident 3 years ago. The salary listed made Emma blink twice to make sure she wasn't seeing things. It was nearly triple what she made at the diner. There had to be a catch. She hesitated over the Apply Now button, then clicked it decisively. She couldn't afford pride or hesitation, not with Tyler's future at stake. 2 days later, Emma walked up the long, winding driveway to Cliff House, gravel crunching under her only pair of decent shoes. The March wind off the Atlantic cut through her thin coat, carrying the scent of salt and impending rain. The mansion loomed ahead, grey stone against greyer sky, windows like watchful eyes. At the massive front door, she smoothed her hair and straightened her blouse before ringing the bell. The chime echoed inside, followed by silence so complete that Emma wondered if the house was empty after all. Then the door swung open, revealing a woman in her 60s with silver hair pulled into a severe bun. "Ms. Clark?" she asked, her tone businesslike. "Yes, I'm here about the caretaker position. Personal care assistant," the woman corrected. "I'm Mrs. Fletcher, the housekeeper. Come in, Mr. Reed is waiting." Emma followed Mrs. Fletcher through a soaring entryway and down a hallway lined with artwork that probably cost more than her entire life's earnings. Her footsteps echoed on marble floors, softened here and there by rugs that looked hand-woven and ancient. "Mr. Reed has specific requirements," Mrs. Fletcher said as they walked. 6 assistants have failed to meet them in the past month alone. Emma swallowed hard but kept pace. What exactly does the position entail? "Mr. Reed will explain his needs. I suggest you listen carefully. He dislikes repetition." They stopped before a set of double doors. Mrs. Fletcher knocked once, then opened them without waiting for a response. The room beyond was a study straight out of an old movie. Dark wood bookshelves, leather furniture, a massive desk, and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the churning grey ocean. A fire crackled in a stone fireplace larger than Emma's bathroom. At first, Emma didn't see anyone. Then a voice spoke from near the windows. "You're 3 minutes early. I appreciate punctuality, but I expect precision." Emma turned toward the voice. A man in a wheelchair sat with his back to her, facing the ocean view. All she could see was the back of his head, dark hair threaded with grey, and one hand resting on the wheelchair's control. "Mrs. Fletcher, you may go," he said. The housekeeper departed silently, closing the doors behind her. "Step forward where I can see you," the man instructed. Emma moved around to face him, maintaining what she hoped was a professional expression. Nathan Reed was younger than she'd expected, perhaps early 40s, with sharp features and the kind of looks that might once have been handsome before life had carved hard lines around his mouth and between his eyebrows. His eyes were an unsettling pale blue, like the winter ocean, and just as cold as they assessed her. "Your resume is thin," he said without preamble. "No experience in healthcare or personal assistance." "I'm a quick learner," Emma replied, refusing to be intimidated despite the flutter in her stomach. "And I've been caring for people my entire working life, just in different settings. Bringing senior citizens their early bird specials hardly qualifies you for this position." Emma blinked, surprised he knew about her diner job. "You researched me?" "I research everyone who enters my home." He wheeled slightly closer. "Why apply for this job, Ms. Clark? You have no relevant experience." Emma considered lying, manufacturing some noble calling to caregiving. But something in those cold eyes told her he'd spot a lie instantly. "I need the money," she said simply. "I have a son who deserves opportunities I can't give him on a waitress's salary." Something flickered across Reed's face. So quickly Emma might have imagined it. "At least you're honest," he said. "Most candidates try to convince me they've always dreamed of wiping drool from a cripple's chin." "Is that what you need?" Emma asked, keeping her voice neutral. "Someone to wipe drool?" Reed's laugh was short and without humor. "No. I need someone to follow instructions precisely, maintain my schedule, assist with physical therapy exercises, manage medications, and, most importantly, mind their own business." He wheeled closer, studying her face. "This isn't charity work, Ms. Clark. I'm not looking for pity or friendship. I need efficiency and discretion. The salary reflects these requirements and the understanding that most people find me difficult." Emma met his gaze steadily. "I don't need you to be easy, Mr. Reed. I just need you to be clear about what you want. And I don't have time for pity, yours or mine." For a long moment, he said nothing, just studied her with those winter ocean eyes. "You start tomorrow," he finally said. 6 a.m. sharp. Not 5:57, not 6:03. Mrs. Fletcher will show you out and provide employment paperwork." Emma nodded, trying to hide her shock and relief. "Thank you for the opportunity." "Don't thank me yet," Reed said. turning his wheelchair back toward the window. "No one has lasted more than 3 weeks. I doubt you'll be the exception." As the door closed behind her, Emma released a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Outside, the first drops of rain began to fall, but Emma barely noticed them as she walked back down the long driveway. She had the job. Now she just had to keep it. Emma woke before her alarm, anxiety doing a better job than any clock. It was 4:30 a.m., still dark outside her window. She slipped out of bed quietly, careful not to wake Tyler as she passed his room. In the kitchen, she made coffee and packed Tyler's lunch, a peanut butter sandwich, an apple, and the last granola bar from the pantry. She scribbled a note explaining she had a new job and would be home by the time he returned from school. She'd tell him the details later, once she knew if she'd last the day. At 5:15, she tiptoed into Tyler's room and gently shook his shoulder. "Hey, buddy, wake up." Tyler blinked sleepily. "It's still dark." "I know. I've got a new job, and I need to leave early. Mrs. Rivera next door will knock at 7:15 to make sure you're up for school." Emma smoothed his hair. "Your lunch is on the counter." "New job?" Tyler sat up, suddenly more awake. "Where?" Emma hesitated. "I'm helping someone who needs assistance. I'll tell you all about it tonight." Tyler's eyes narrowed with the perception that often caught her off guard. "Is it because of the letter? The one you hid in your pocket?" Emma sighed. Of course he had noticed. "We'll talk about everything tonight, okay? I promise." By 5:30, Emma was driving her old Honda along the coastal road, headlights cutting through thick fog. The sky was just lightening to a murky grey when she pulled up to Cliff House at exactly 5:55. She waited in the car until 5:59, then walked to the door. Mrs. Fletcher opened it as Emma raised her hand to knock. "Good morning," Emma said. "Follow me," Mrs. Fletcher replied, not bothering with greetings. "Mr. Reed expects you in the sunroom for breakfast. He'll review your duties while eating." Emma followed the housekeeper through the enormous house, trying to memorize the layout. In daylight, she could see what the evening gloom had hidden. The house was beautiful, but oddly impersonal, like a museum where nothing had been touched in years. The sunroom was a glass-enclosed space at the back of the house, overlooking terraced gardens that led down toward the cliff edge and the ocean beyond. Nathan Reed sat at a small table, a newspaper spread before him, dressed in a crisp button-down shirt and dark slacks. 6 o'clock precisely, he noted without looking up. "There's coffee in the pot. Pour yourself a cup if you want, then sit." Emma helped herself to coffee, surprised by the offer. She sat across from him, hands wrapped around the warm mug. "Your schedule is in that folder," Reed said, nodding toward a leather portfolio on the table. "Medications, therapy appointments, exercise regimens. Mrs. Fletcher handles the household, meals and cleaning. You handle me." Emma opened the folder and found a meticulously organized schedule broken down in 15-minute increments. "You'll assist with physical therapy exercises daily from 9 to 10:30, Reed continued. "Dr. Mercer comes Tuesdays and Thursdays at 2 p.m. I work from 11 to 1 and again from 3 to 6. During those times, you'll be on call, but not in my office. Any questions so far?" "What kind of work do you do?" Emma asked. Reed's eyes narrowed. "That falls under minding your own business." Emma nodded, taking a sip of coffee. "Fair enough. What about medications?" "Listed in the folder with times and dosages. You'll need to refill prescriptions through Dr. Mercer's office when supplies run low." A woman Emma hadn't met entered with a tray of food: eggs, toast, fruit. She set it down silently and left. "That's Marie, the cook," Reed said. "She leaves after lunch preparation. Dinner is prepared in advance." Reed ate methodically, cutting his food into precise bites. Emma noticed his hands were strong and dexterous, with long fingers that showed no tremor or weakness. "Your accident," Emma said carefully. "May I ask about the nature of your injuries? It would help me understand your needs better." Reed set down his fork. spinal cord injury at T10. Lower limbs paralyzed, upper body fully functional. No need for help with personal hygiene or dressing. No bowel or bladder complications you need to worry about. His clinical description carried an edge of defiance, as if daring her to show pity. "Thank you," Emma said simply. "That's helpful to know." Something like surprise flickered across Reed's face before disappearing. "After breakfast, I'll show you the rest of the house, the areas you need to know," he said. "I expect you to learn the layout quickly." By mid-morning, Emma's head was spinning with information. The mansion was enormous, with 3 floors connected by an elevator installed after Reed's accident. His bedroom and office were on the main floor, along with the kitchen, dining room, and sunroom. The upper floors contained guest rooms, a library, and rooms Reed described as "not your concern." The basement level housed a home gym modified with specialized equipment for physical therapy, a heated indoor pool, and a room filled with electronics and tools that Reed passed by without explanation. At precisely 9 a.m., they entered the gym for Reed's therapy session. Emma watched as he transferred himself from the wheelchair to a padded table with practiced ease. "The exercises are listed here," he said, handing her a laminated sheet. "I do them myself, but sometimes need assistance with resistance or positioning." For the next hour, Emma followed his instructions, helping when asked but otherwise staying quiet. She noticed Reed pushed himself hard, jaw clenched against what must have been considerable discomfort. When they finished, Reed was breathing heavily, a light sheen of sweat on his forehead. "Hand me that towel," he said, gesturing to a small shelf. As Emma passed it to him, she noticed a photograph partially hidden behind a stack of towels. A younger Reed standing on a sailboat, laughing with a woman whose face was turned away from the camera. Reed saw her looking and snatched the photo, shoving it into a drawer. "This concludes your tour," he said coldly. "I have work to do. Be available when I call." The rest of the day passed in a rhythm of medication reminders, brief interactions, and long stretches of waiting. Reed worked behind closed doors while Emma familiarized herself with the house and the detailed binder of instructions. At 2:30, Emma's phone buzzed with a text from Tyler. "How's the new job? Can I come see where you work?" She smiled, typing back, "It's interesting. And no, not yet. See you at home soon." At 5 p.m., Reed emerged from his office. "You'll need to prepare dinner. Marie left instructions in the kitchen." Emma followed him to the kitchen, where she found detailed notes for heating the prepared meal, a roasted chicken with vegetables. As she worked, Reed watched from the doorway. "You haven't asked why I fired the others," he observed. Emma shrugged. "I figured you'd tell me if you wanted me to know. The first couldn't follow a schedule, the second wouldn't stop talking, the third tried to fix me with positive thinking." Reed's mouth twisted. "The fourth stole a silver paperweight. The fifth was competent but cried when I spoke sharply to her. The sixth called me sweetie." Emma couldn't help but laugh at the last one. "Well, I promise not to call you sweetie." For a moment, something almost like amusement crossed Reed's face. "See that you don't." They ate dinner in near silence, Reed occasionally asking abrupt questions about her background or experience. Emma answered honestly but briefly, aware he was testing her somehow. At 5:55, Reed set down his fork. "You're dismissed for the day. Be here at 6 tomorrow." "Same time, same place," Emma confirmed, standing to clear the dishes. Reed watched her for a moment. "You made it through day 1. That's further than I expected." Emma smiled slightly. Low expectations make for pleasant surprises. As she drove home, exhaustion hit her in waves. The job was demanding in ways she hadn't anticipated, not physically but mentally. Reed required constant attention to detail and perfect timing, with shifting moods that kept her on edge. But the check Mrs. Fletcher had given her, an advance on her first week's salary, would cover Tyler's program deposit with enough left for groceries and the electric bill. For that kind of money, she could handle a difficult boss. Tyler was waiting on their small front porch when she pulled up, homework spread across his lap. "Mom, tell me everything," he said, gathering his papers. Emma hugged him tight, breathing in the familiar smell of shampoo and graphite pencils. "Let's go inside. I've got a lot to tell you." As they walked in, Tyler looked at her hopefully. "Does this mean I can do the STEM program?" Emma smiled, her exhaustion momentarily forgotten. Yes, it does." 2 weeks into her job at Cliff House, Emma had settled into a routine. Each morning she arrived at exactly 6 a.m., helped Reed through his schedule, and returned home to Tyler by 6:30 p.m. The work was demanding but straightforward, and Reed, while still abrupt and sometimes harsh, had become more predictable. Today, however, broke the pattern. Emma pulled into the long driveway to find an unfamiliar black luxury car parked near the entrance. Mrs. Fletcher met her at the door, her usual stern expression replaced by something like worry. "Mr. Reed has a visitor," she said quietly. "Mr. Harrington arrived unannounced an hour ago. They're in the study." Emma hung up her coat. "Should I wait somewhere else until they're finished?" "No." Mrs. Fletcher glanced toward the hallway. "Mr. Reed asked that you bring coffee to the study immediately upon arrival." Emma nodded and headed to the kitchen, where Marie had already prepared a tray with coffee and pastries. She could hear raised voices as she approached the study door, one Reed's, the other deeper and unfamiliar. She knocked once and entered to find Reed in his wheelchair, facing a tall, silver-haired man in an expensive suit. The tension in the room was thick enough to touch. "Finally," Reed said when he saw her. "Set it there." He gestured to a side table. As Emma arranged the cups, the stranger studied her with open curiosity. "So this is the new assistant?" he said. "The one who's lasted longer than a week." "Emma, this is James Harrington, my business partner," Reed said, his tone making the introduction sound like an accusation. "James, Emma Clark." Harrington extended his hand with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Pleasure to meet you, Ms. Clark. Quite an achievement, putting up with Nathan for 2 whole weeks." Emma shook his hand briefly. "The coffee's hot. Will there be anything else, Mr. Reed?" Reed's eyes flickered between her and Harrington. "Yes. Stay." Emma nodded, stepping back to stand near the door, hands clasped in front of her. Harrington raised an eyebrow, but returned his attention to Reed. "As I was saying, the board wants an answer by Friday. 3 years is long enough for a sabbatical." Reed's knuckles whitened on his armrest. "It's not a sabbatical, and Reed Technologies is still my company." 51% your company," Harrington corrected smoothly. "But even controlling interest means nothing if you're not present. The company needs visible leadership." "The company needs innovation," Reed countered, "which it's been lacking since you pushed development away from assistive technologies toward government contracts." Harrington sighed, setting down his coffee cup. "We've had this argument. The board agreed with me. Assistive tech is a niche market with limited profit potential." "It was never about profit," Reed snapped, then stopped, seeming to remember Emma's presence. "We'll continue this discussion later." "There's nothing to discuss. Either you return to active leadership or sell your shares. Those are the options." Harrington stood, straightening his jacket. "I'll see myself out." After he left, silence filled the study. Reed stared out the window, his profile rigid with anger. "Should I leave?" Emma asked finally. "No." Reed turned to face her. "You have questions. Ask them now and be done with it." Emma hesitated. "Reed Technologies, you founded it?" "Yes, before the accident." Reed's voice was flat. "We developed software and hardware solutions for various industries. It was successful. The assistive technologies he mentioned were my focus after the accident." Reed cut her off. Harrington thought them a waste of resources. Most of the board agreed. Emma remembered the mysterious room in the basement filled with electronics. "You've continued working on them privately?" Reed's eyes narrowed. "What makes you say that? Just a guess. You spend hours in your office, and that room in the basement looks like a workshop. Reed watched her for a long moment. You notice things. Most people don't. It's part of the job, Emma said. No, your job is to follow instructions, not make observations. Reed wheeled closer. But since you're so observant, I have a new task for you. My physical therapist called in sick today. You'll need to help with the pool exercises instead. Emma had never seen Reed truly vulnerable until she helped him prepare for the pool. He refused assistance changing into swim shorts, but allowed her to help transfer him from the wheelchair to a specialized lift that would lower him into the water. In the bright light of the pool room, Emma could see the muscular definition of his upper body, a stark contrast to his atrophied legs. Surgical scars marked his lower back. Reed caught her looking, and his expression hardened. The exercises are simple, he said curtly. I need support while doing leg movements in the water. Once in the pool, Reed transformed. The water gave him a freedom of movement he lacked on land. Emma held his upper body stable while he worked his legs against the water's resistance. How did it happen? Emma asked as they moved through the exercises. The accident. Reed was quiet so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, keeping his eyes on the water. Sailing accident. 3 years ago. A storm came in faster than predicted. You were alone? No, my fiancé was with me. His voice was expressionless. She managed to swim to shore. Emma remembered the photograph she'd glimpsed, Reed on a sailboat with a woman. I'm sorry, she said simply. Reed's jaw tightened. Don't be. Caroline made her choice afterward. She couldn't handle what I'd become. That must have been difficult. It was clarifying, Reed corrected. It showed me exactly who I could count on. The answer was no one. Later that afternoon, as Emma organized Reed's medications for the following day, her phone rang. Tyler's school. Miss Clark, this is Principal Walsh. There's been an incident involving Tyler. Emma's heart skipped. Is he hurt? No, nothing like that. But there was an altercation with another student. We need you to come pick him up. Reed, working nearby, glanced up at her tone. Problem? Emma covered the phone. My son. I need to go. Reed frowned. It's only 2:30. It's an emergency, Emma said, already gathering her purse. Wait. Reed held up a hand. Take my car. It's faster than yours. Jenkins will drive you. 20 minutes later, Emma sat in the principal's office beside a subdued Tyler, whose left eye was beginning to swell. He punched Jackson Miller, Principal Walsh explained. Apparently, Jackson made comments about Tyler's new calculator. Emma turned to her son. Is that true? Tyler kept his eyes down. He said I was showing off with my fancy new stuff. Said you must be doing something illegal to afford it. Emma felt her face burn. Tyler, you know that's not true. I know, Tyler mumbled. But he kept saying it. Said you were probably... He stopped, his cheeks flushing. Principal Walsh cleared his throat. Unfortunately, fighting is against school policy. Tyler will be suspended for the rest of the week. Emma nodded, too tired to argue. I understand. Outside, Jenkins waited with Reed's car. Mr. Reed asked me to take you both home, he explained. Tyler's eyes widened at the luxury vehicle. Whose car is this? My boss's, Emma said. He let us borrow it. During the drive, Tyler remained quiet, staring out the window. Want to tell me what really happened? Emma asked softly. Tyler's chin trembled slightly. Jackson said you were Mr. Reed's girlfriend. That's why we suddenly had money. Emma felt her stomach drop. Tyler, you know that's not true, right? It's just a job. I know, Tyler said, but everyone's talking about it. Mrs. Rivera heard at the grocery store that you're living at Cliff House now. People like to gossip, Emma said. It doesn't make it true. As they neared their apartment building, Emma noticed a familiar car parked outside, a beaten-up blue sedan that made her heart sink. "Dad's here," Tyler said, suddenly perking up. Emma forced herself to stay calm. "I can see that." David Clark leaned against his car, hands in the pockets of his worn leather jacket. 3 years older than when he'd left, with new lines around his eyes, but still handsome in the way that had first caught her attention 14 years ago. He straightened as the unfamiliar luxury car pulled up, then broke into a smile when Tyler jumped out. "Hey, buddy." David caught Tyler in a hug. "Man, you got tall." Emma climbed out more slowly, nodding to Jenkins that he could leave. "Emma," David said, his smile turning uncertain. "You look good." "What are you doing here, David?" Emma asked. "Can a guy visit his son?" David ruffled Tyler's hair. "I've been back in town a couple of weeks. Thought it was time to reconnect." 2 weeks and you're just showing up now?" Emma kept her voice level, aware of Tyler watching them both. David shrugged. "Wanted to get settled first. Got a job at the marina, rented a place down by the wharf." He nodded toward their building. "Can we talk inside?" Emma glanced at Tyler's hopeful face and sighed. "Fine, but not for long. I need to get back to work." As they walked up to the apartment, Emma wondered how to explain David's sudden appearance to Reed. She'd have to make up the time somehow. One more complication in a day, already full of them. Emma woke to the sound of rain pounding against her bedroom window. The weather forecast had warned of a northeastern storm hitting the coast, and it had arrived with full force during the night. She checked her phone. 5 a.m. No messages from Reed, which meant he still expected her at the usual time. She dressed quietly and peeked into Tyler's room. He was sleeping soundly, his suspension from school allowing him to sleep in. Emma had arranged for Mrs. Rivera to check on him later, though David had offered to come by. She wasn't ready to trust him with that responsibility yet. David's sudden reappearance had complicated everything. During their brief conversation yesterday, he'd talked about making things right and being a family again, phrases that might have moved her years ago, but now rang hollow. Tyler, though, had been thrilled, bombarding his father with stories and school projects. Emma left a note on the kitchen counter, reminding Tyler to finish his science homework, despite the suspension, then grabbed her keys and headed out. The rain was coming down in sheets, and the wind nearly knocked her off her feet as she ran to her car. When she turned the key, the engine made a sickening grinding noise, then nothing. She tried again with the same result. After the third attempt, she slammed her hand against the steering wheel in frustration. Her phone showed 5:20 a.m. No way to get her car fixed in time, and the local taxi service wouldn't be running for hours. Calling Reed to explain would only result in terse disapproval. Emma buttoned her coat to her chin, pulled up her hood, and started walking. It was nearly 3 miles to Cliff House, most of it along the exposed coastal road. The rain soaked through her coat within minutes. The wind drove the water into her face, making it hard to see. But she kept moving, one step at a time. By the time she reached the gates of Cliff House, it was 6:15. Emma was shivering uncontrollably, her clothes plastered to her body, her shoes squelching with each step. Mrs. Fletcher opened the door, her eyes widening in shock. "Good heavens!" "I'm sorry I'm late," Emma said through chattering teeth. "My car wouldn't start." "Get inside before you catch your death." Mrs. Fletcher pulled her in, immediately taking her wet coat. "You walked? In this weather?" "I didn't have a choice," Emma said. "Mr. Reed has been asking for you," Mrs. Fletcher said, leading her toward the kitchen. "Wait here. I'll get you a towel and tell him you've arrived." Emma stood dripping on the tile floor, arms wrapped around herself in a futile attempt to stop shaking. She could hear Mrs. Fletcher's voice from down the hall, then Reed's deeper response. A moment later, Reed appeared in the doorway of the kitchen, his expression unreadable. "Your car broke down," he said flatly. Emma nodded, too cold to explain further. "So you walked 3 miles. in a northeastern storm. I couldn't be late, Emma said, her voice trembling with cold. Something shifted in Reed's eyes. You're 15 minutes late now, he said, but the usual edge was missing from his voice. He wheeled closer, studying her drenched figure. You're no use to me with pneumonia. Go with Mrs. Fletcher. She'll find you dry clothes. An hour later, dressed in borrowed clothes and warmed by a hot shower, Emma found Reed in his study. I apologize for the delay this morning, she said formally. Reed didn't look up from his computer. Jenkins will pick you up tomorrow if your car isn't fixed. You should have called. I didn't want to make excuses. Reed finally looked at her. There's a difference between excuses and valid reasons. He closed his laptop. Now, since today's schedule is already disrupted, I have a different task for you. Come with me. Reed led her to the basement room filled with electronics, the one he'd bypassed during her initial tour. Inside, work tables lined the walls, covered with circuit boards, computer components, and half-assembled devices Emma couldn't identify. This is what Harrington doesn't see the value in, Reed said, gesturing around the room. Assistive technology prototypes. Emma walked slowly around the space, taking in the organized chaos. You're still developing them, even though your company won't produce them? For now. Reed wheeled to a table and picked up what looked like a modified gaming controller. This is designed for people with limited hand mobility, and this, he moved to another table with a sleek headset, uses eye tracking for computer navigation. They look amazing, Emma said sincerely. They're still flawed, Reed said. The eye tracking has latency issues I can't solve. He hesitated, then added, Your son, Tyler. You mentioned he's interested in technology. Emma looked at him in surprise. Yes, very much so. Bring him here Saturday morning. I want to show him something. Tyler's eyes were as big as saucers when they pulled up to Cliff House that Saturday. You work here? Emma smiled at his amazement. It's just a house, Ty, a big one, but still just a house. Mrs. Fletcher met them at the door with her usual formal nod. Mr. Reed is waiting in the basement lab. Tyler looked at Emma with confusion. Lab? You'll see, Emma said, leading him through the house. Reed was at a workbench when they entered, focused on a circuit board under a magnifying glass. He looked up as they approached. You must be Tyler, he said without preamble. Tyler nodded, suddenly shy. Yes, sir. Your mother says you have an interest in engineering. Yes, sir. I'm in the STEM program at school, or I will be starting next month. Reed nodded. I want to show you something. He wheeled over to a table where a complex device sat partially assembled. This is an adaptive interface for computers. Do you know what that means? Tyler stepped closer, his shyness forgotten as he examined the device. It helps people who can't use regular keyboards or mice? Exactly. Reed handed him a small component. This module isn't working properly. The signal gets distorted. For the next hour, Emma watched in amazement as Reed and Tyler worked together on the device, her son asking intelligent questions and Reed answering with unexpected patience. When Tyler suggested a modification to the circuit design, Reed actually smiled, a genuine expression Emma had never seen before. You have good instincts, Reed told Tyler. Try it that way. Later, as they prepared to leave, Reed handed Tyler a small box. Test this at home. Tell me what you think next time. In the car, Tyler couldn't stop talking. Mom, Mr. Reed is designing stuff like what we learned about in advanced tech, and he said I had good ideas. Did you see the eye tracking system? It's like sci-fi but real. Emma smiled at his excitement. I'm glad you had fun. Tyler became thoughtful. He's not as scary as I thought he'd be, from how you described him. People are complicated, Ty. Sometimes they show different sides to different people. The storm had cleared by Monday morning, leaving behind a washed clean sky and the kind of crisp autumn air that made Emma think of new beginnings. Her car was still in the shop, so Jenkins picked her up as arranged. "There's someone waiting for Mr. Reed," Jenkins informed her as they drove. "Arrived early, a Miss Margaret Reed." Emma frowned. "A relative?" "His sister." At Cliff House, Emma found Reed in the sunroom with a woman who shared his dark hair and sharp features. Though her face was softer, her smile warmer. "Emma," Reed said when she entered. "This is my sister, Maggie." Maggie extended her hand. "So you're the miracle worker Nathan mentioned?" Emma raised an eyebrow. "Miracle worker? You've lasted almost a month," Maggie said with a smile. "And apparently, you have a brilliant son who fixed Nathan's eye tracking system." Emma glanced at Reed, surprised he'd spoken to his sister about Tyler. "Tyler made a simple suggestion that worked," Reed said, his tone defensive. "Sometimes fresh perspectives help." Maggie's smile widened. 3 years I've been trying to get him to collaborate again, and your 12-year-old managed it in an afternoon." Reed cleared his throat. "Emma, I'd like to discuss something with you, privately." Maggie stood. "I'll wait in the garden. Lovely to meet you, Emma." When she'd gone, Reed turned to Emma. "I've been considering my options regarding the company." Emma nodded, unsure where this was heading. "I've decided to challenge Harrington," Reed continued. "Return to active leadership, but with a focus on the assistive technology division." "That's good news, isn't it?" "It means changes." Reed tapped his fingers on his armrest. "I'll need to be in the office 3 days a week, and I'll need someone there who understands both my needs and the technology." Emma blinked. "Are you offering me a different job?" "An expanded one. Higher salary, more regular hours. Your son showed real potential with the adaptive interface. There could be opportunities for him as well. Mentorship, internship eventually." Emma tried to process what he was saying. "Why me? I'm not an engineer." "No, but you notice things. You solve problems. You walked 3 miles in a storm rather than fail at your responsibilities." Reed's voice softened slightly. "And your son needs opportunities you can't provide alone." Emma thought of Tyler's excited face after working with Reed, of the STEM program that would challenge his bright mind, of the constant financial struggle that had defined their lives for so long. "Is this charity?" she asked bluntly. Reed's expression hardened. "I don't do charity. This is a business decision. You have skills I need. Your son has potential that could benefit my company eventually. It's an investment." Emma knew there was more to it than that. Had seen the way Reed watched Tyler with something like wistfulness, but she appreciated that he framed it as an exchange rather than a handout. "I'll need to think about it," she said finally. Reed nodded. "Take the day. The company needs an answer, and so do I." As Reed left to join his sister in the garden, Emma watched him go, realizing how much had changed in just 1 month. The bitter, isolated man who had hired her was still there, but now she could see past that to someone more complex, someone capable of seeing potential in a 12-year-old boy, someone trying to rebuild connections broken by tragedy. Whatever she decided about the job offer, Emma knew their lives had already been transformed in ways she never could have predicted when she first walked up the long driveway to Cliff House.